Don't join palms. And repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Palms down. All right, good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all. Thanks for showing up. Many of you have a really hard time with patience. And the rest of you figured it out? You want to share your secret? Those who didn't raise their hand, we're going to do this one more time. How many of you have a hard time with patience? So if your hand did not go up, how do you do it? Did you all hear that? Can you say that again, please?
You'll have to wait for the answer.
I'll have to wait for the answer. Yes. I finally found a student after 17 years. Why? What's so hard about patience? Why the difficulty with it?
Our culture is fast, instant gratification, everything now.
Yeah. Since we were kids, yeah, sure.
The whole society is impatient.
The whole society.
It's also, I think, fear of the unknown. You want to know.
Fear of these.
There's like an unknown and like not knowing what's going to happen or whatever.
Fear of the unknown. What else?
You want to be able to control everything.
Want to be able to control, not the people here. Want to be able to control everything?
Oh, I moved to ego.
Ego? My ego? My ego is the reason you lack patience? Sorry, Chuck. What else? So we're going to leave those open. Sorry, thank you. If you want to move, you're welcome to, but we have to keep those open. If you can push them both up. Thanks. Perfect. That's good. Thank you. What else? Why do we lack patience? David?
Acceptance has led me to be more patient over time. I was
Accept.
very impatient before, and now it will come when it comes, and this is now, and it'll come in the future, and that's that. But I was a very impatient person up until a few years ago.
Yeah. So quality improvement. Yeah. Great.
It forces you to like sit with discomfort.
Yeah.
Waiting for something.
Sitting with discomfort.
I was going to say, because we have trouble sitting in the present.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to do that.
Right. Which is funny because we're always only sitting in the present. It's impossible to not sit in the present moment. You know? What else? Anything else? How we lack or why we lack patience?
I've always liked that saying, all good things come to those who wait.
Yeah. All
It might
good.
be true, but I'll wait and I'll get my way eventually.
All good things to come to those who wait, and it works for you because if you just wait long enough, you'll get your way. You know, Could we also add all bad things come
Yes.
to those who wait? You know, all things come to those who wait. They do. Anything else? With patience, why we struggle, where we struggle.
I think it's just psychological in a way because I meditate regularly and I set the timer for 30 minutes. And every single time it's like this point at the end where in my mind I go, I can't take this anymore. I can't take it. And then I'll look down at the timer and there's 3 minutes left.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what is that about? It's psychological. There's
Yeah.
something, you know, and I literally can't do it anymore.
Yeah. What if you set no timer?
That's scary because I want to have a frame, you know.
Oh, say that again. I said, what if you set no timer and you said that's scary? You wouldn't have a frame.
A frame to put it in, like I wouldn't know, you know. It's an odd sensation, but I need to know that I'm going to do it for this block of time.
Yeah, which has nothing to do with control.
Yeah.
So I need to know that I'm going to do it for this block of time.
Well, we do it here.
Sure, we do it here. Yeah. Means nothing, right? The reality is what you just said is the exact reason why we all suffer. We have created our entire, I mean, in every, you know, everyone shared beautiful answers, but we'll just end with that one. That is what we do our entire lives. We set a framework, a structure, a box. In this example, it's the time that you've set for meditation. Like you said, it's a 30-minute timer. 27 minutes in, you're fine. You notice you have 3 minutes left, and then it's absolute torture. Those last 3 minutes, right? And you don't even know why. But our entire lives, all we've done is set a framework and a box of how we think things are supposed to go. And then we spend our entire lives trying to force everything into that schedule, into that framework, into that box, into that idea of how we want life and things to be. There are seats up here, so please don't go straight to the back, thanks. Then we have 50 people piled in the back, thank you.
Jeff, don't we need this session, this class, whatever it is, has a framework and a box. We're all here at about 11 a.m.
Yes.
So isn't it a necessary?
No. It's only necessary to accomplish what you think is important to accomplish. That's assuming I think it's you. That would be assuming that you think that I think it's important that you're all here at 11 and that you all leave at 12. I don't really care when you show up or when you leave. I'm sitting at 11 and I'm done at 12. You can either stay or go. There you go. Right? But I mean, that's the point. Is that I think where you're going with that is that in reality, in our very logical, practical day, let's say you have a 9-to-5 job. I don't encourage you to show up at noon and tell your boss, well, I'm Buddhist now, so your framework of time doesn't really apply to me, so I'll show up at noon and I'll leave at 2, and you're just going to have to be good with that. So there is a practicality to that. The question is, are we attached and stuck on that? Meaning, giving that example, so yes, this class starts at 11 and ends roughly at 12. Now, would it bother me if people walked in at 11:10 or 11:20? No. Would it bother me if people left at 11:30? No. Would it bother me if you were still sitting here at 3 o'clock? No. I'd just give you stuff to do. So it's not so much that the framework is the problem. The problem is how attached are we to that framework, and how stuck are we in that framework. And most of us build our lives with that idea of how we think everything is supposed to go. And when it doesn't go that way, then we feel that we've lost control. Our brain fries, we don't know what to do, and we end up here on a Saturday morning at 11 o'clock or whatever time, you know? So, all right, that was fun. So Benton here shared, good morning, Benton. Patience is a form of love. When you are patient with someone, like with a child or a partner, you're willing to let it be and grow without controlling or expecting. So, well said, Benton. Thank you. All right, so we'll start with the meditation practice. A couple things to touch before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you, right? You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice when you don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit, we're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable however you're seated. If you are in a cushion, often it helps slide into the front third. Pushing the stomach forward allows the back to straighten slightly, shoulders are relaxed. If you're on a bench or a chair, whatever you're sitting in, just trying to relax yourself. Hands can be rested on the knees or lap, whatever is comfortable for you. If you need to move, simply move. Movement doesn't make you a bad meditator. It just means you need to move. I will guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgments from the practice. Just sitting. Breathing. learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, just sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. Most important with the practice of meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit and hold the hands across the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada. It means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being no different than any one of us who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means very simply for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. So all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not easy. It's not always fun. It's not an escape from anything. It's direct perception into the present moment. And very often that present moment is incredibly difficult and filled with conflict, chaos, challenges. And this practice is learning to be with life as it arises, which is so different from what many of us have done most of our lives, which is when conflict arises, we try to run from it. And there's just more waiting for us. Meditation is free, Buddhist practice is free. It's just sitting, breathing. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything around us, and we work on changing our mind and our reaction to the world around us, life gets simpler. So with that, I think I'll just pause. For me, always, I just prefer to respond to questions. Meditation, Buddhist practice, anything that you're sitting with. And we'll use the rest of our brief time this morning for that. And for those who are joining virtually, welcome. My apologies, I don't think I welcomed you so much at the beginning, so welcome. And Greg, if you are there and you did figure out how to connect and you do see a chat box and you can figure out how to put something there, say hello so I know you made it all right. And if you have any questions, those virtual, just feel free to chime in there. I'll do my best to respond as well. So we'll open up to questions. Meditation, Buddhist practice, yeah.
I want to ask about your experience before and after meditation with the room, right? You address the room, we all sit, and then we come out of it. And what is your experience there?
About the same.
Yeah. The room feels the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been in this room a long time.
I know.
It feels the same to me whether you're here or not. Honestly, I mean, no offense to anyone who feels like I don't love you from that statement. You know, I'm as attached to you all as you are to. I'm just gonna leave it at that because people who don't know me won't understand it. But yeah, yeah, you know. How many of you are new here today for the first time? I just want to see who I'm going to shock that's never going to come back, you know. You know, the Buddhist teachings on Mara are really important. And, you know, for those who don't know, without getting into the whole story, you know, prior to the Buddha's awakening, as you know, he was challenged by Mara. And Mara was really his mind, but in the story, it's, you know, like this person that's challenging him. And so Mara begins to throw arrows at him, and instead of, you know, the Buddha trying to like dodge these arrows like in the Matrix, you know, with the bullets or something, he just sits there, and I've seen too many movies. So as soon as I say a line, like movies just go through my head. It's great. And annoying all at the same time. But so Mara throws arrows at the Buddha and Siddhartha at this time, and he just simply puts his hand up, the arrows turn to lotus petals and fall to the ground. Mara begins to rain hail, thunderstorm down on him, and a king cobra, a naga, seven-headed cobra comes up, and instead of him, like, you know, screaming and yelling, he just sits. The cobra comes up, coils underneath him, raises him off the ground, which is full of hail and, you know, wet from this melting everything, and then with the seven heads, covers him to protect him, right? I mean, we see a little spider and we run, you know. This is like a seven-headed cobra. Mara begins to dance beautiful daughters, you know, his beautiful daughters in front of Siddhartha, and Siddhartha just sits there, is not even phased. Daughters turn to stone. So not even with lust or desire can he be tempted. And for me, with this path and this practice and this community for the last 17 to 20 years, that's my practice. We're all just empty physical vessels. And by empty, I mean the emptiness practice. Coming together in this illusion of time and space. And it keeps me from being attached to anyone or anything, truly. So when I sit here, when there's no physical bodies here, to me, it's the same as when there's physical bodies here. Now, I will say, and I've talked about this before, when I was leading during the pandemic, for example, and the space was, you know, had no physical bodies in it for 16 months, and I was staring at this little tripod and this little camera, you know, and I would like imagine there's these little tiny people jumping up and down in there, you know. It was definitely more challenging to really, when I speak, to really connect. And even then I did tricks where I would like look around, and, you know, a lot of the regulars, you have your regular seats, and so I would imagine certain people in certain seats, and as I'd roam around, I'm like, oh, there's Chuck, you know, and I'm really connecting with Chuck sitting by the window. But that was when I was speaking, because it was hard to, sometimes I would leave from my parents' house, and So I was in this room that had like a mirror in front behind the camera and the computer, and then there's like this mirror, and all I'm seeing is me on this thing, and then there's a mirror of me looking at this thing, and it sounds weird, but it's not much different for me. I mean, I love you all just the same, but you know, we're just cycling through. Yeah. What else? Yeah.
So you mentioned about patience earlier, and my question is like, you know, when you are at the point you're losing your temper and your patience, and ego gets on the way, like, how do you shut your mind off at that exact moment?
Yeah.
What do you tell yourself to keep everything under control?
There was one little phrase there. You said when guests are on the way. Is that what you said? There was, in what you just said, there was a part where you just said, right before you said, how do you shut your mind off? You said, when you're about to lose your patience, and I thought you said, and guests are on the way.
Ego gets on the way.
Oh, ego gets in the way. Okay. I thought you meant like, you know, you're about to open the doors to a bunch of guests, because that's a good practice also. You know, like you're hosting a bunch of people and you're just angry and yelling, and all of a sudden you're about to open the door and be like, good morning. So, two things about that question and this practice of what do we do when we're losing our patience, right? And your ego gets in the way. How do you kind of shut it off, as you said? Two things. And the first step is to understand that what we're working towards, not as a goal necessarily, but just something with practice and cultivating a daily meditation, a daily meditation, a daily meditation. This is not towards you directly. This is towards the millions of other people who ask questions. So many people ask questions, regardless of what it is, around Buddhist teachings and practice. And then when I come back to them and say, how many of you sit in a dedicated, concentrated, attempted, focused meditation every single day? Very few people. Right? Very few. And so we often ask questions about how do we cultivate patience? How do we cultivate compassion? How do we learn to be with life as it arises? And I say, are you sitting every single day? No. Okay. Well, if you don't eat, you're always going to be hungry. Okay. So the first thing is develop a daily meditation practice to where you are learning when, in essence, nothing is going on. I mean, yeah, you hear sounds and there's stuff around you, but where you are training the mind to sit silently. And when you sit silently, I'll get to this in a minute, more detail, but you're not, as you said, how do you shut everything off? This practice isn't about shutting off. It's about turning on and waking up and opening up to the fact that you have strong emotions. And you're not trying to cut those emotions. This practice is not about becoming desensitized to your emotions. It's not about squashing them. It's not about suppressing them. Most people have suppressed them enough their whole life, and that's the problem. It's watching them, understanding them, and seeing them for the impermanent, illusory things that they are. Emotions are just thoughts. So when you sit in meditation, no one's around, it's just you, you're going to have emotions and thoughts, right? What are you going to do with them? Nothing. So as we were all sitting here, you all had thoughts. You all had emotions from those thoughts. You all had feelings from those thoughts. Some of them were, as the Buddha taught, positive. Some were negative, and some were neutral. But you weren't just sitting there like these blank canvases of nothing. You're sitting there with all your thoughts and all your emotions and all your physical pain and all your mental pain and all your emotional pain. And for 20 minutes, what did you do with it? Nothing. Do that more. Because what you're working towards is, otherwise your whole life, it's like, for me, a metaphor is having a headache. And we take 2 Advil to get rid of the headache, right? Well, what happens the next day when you have a headache again? Then you spend your whole life popping 2 Advil every single day. Wouldn't it be nice to just stop getting the headache to begin with? So a daily, dedicated meditation practice will help so we don't find ourselves in those moments nearly as often. Does that make sense first? Second part. That's great, Jeff, but that's going to take me about 3 years to get there. So what do I do between now and 3 or 10 years from now? Which is how long it's probably going to take. In that moment, just stop. Close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths. And understand in that moment that when your ego is getting the best of you, you're losing your temper, you're screaming, you're yelling, whatever emotions are coming up, understand that that moment will pass. And that in all likelihood, you're about to do something that an hour or 2 minutes from then, you're really going to regret. Right? I spend every week down in a juvenile prison. Whatever name they want to give it, it's still a juvenile prison. And these kids at 14 years old, they wish they thought one more second before they did what they did. Spent 20 years in adult prisons. Same thing. But they're there for life. Right? So in that moment, stop. Close your eyes, take 3 deep breaths, and realize that moment will pass. Your ego is wrapped up in thinking that you're right. And as long as we make it about us, we're going to struggle. You know? Does that help? Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
Well, my question is 2 parts. What are the official, like, the texts with the Buddha's teachings? I've heard various texts of Dhammapada.
The official text with what teachings?
Like the Buddha's actual teachings.
On
what he taught. Is it like the Pali? I've heard like the Pali Canon, the Dhammapada.
So the Buddha taught for 45 years. And he said a lot of stuff. Okay? It was all memorized for 45 years. Sometime between 50 and 100 years after he died, they came together and said, in essence, this is some good stuff. We should write it down. So the oldest recorded teachings, but like the question of the official as if it's like the legitimate copy versus the fake one. Years ago, a good friend of mine said, if the Buddha never existed, and if everything we're talking about was said by Donald Duck, it wouldn't matter. It's still good stuff, right? But the Pali Canon, they came together and they, one of the Buddhist disciples was known to have great memory, Ananda, I believe. I'm not known to have great memory, right? And they recited all of the teachings that the Buddha shared. That's why the sutras, right? And sutra means thread, the word sutra. So it's a thread of the teachings. The Pali Canon, most of the sutras will start out, thus have I heard at such and such time, at such and such place, with such and such people, the Buddha once said. So it's a retelling of what they think he actually said. It wasn't like they sitting there with their iPhones recording his stuff, you know? So they came together 50, 100 years later. I'm not a scholar. I don't look at Buddhism that way. But they came together and said, good stuff, let's write it down. And they began to transcribe it onto palm leaves. And that became known as what's called the Pali Canon. And they say that those are the original, oldest teachings of the Buddha.
Okay, yeah, cool. Yeah. That probably should have been what I considered, because I'm sure. But the other part was, like the meditation practice obviously seems to be, geared towards stilling the mind, not shutting it off, like you said. And I've done a couple of Vipassana, things like that, where they go over the techniques, Anapana first, and then Vipassana. Is there anything in the teachings that the Buddha is supposed to have, said to have taught about, like, so a big part of my life is the 8 limbs of the yogic path, with what they talk about the asanas and then the pranayama leading towards the meditation. So is there anything in the teachings in Buddhism in general, official or not, that it talks about steadying the mind through the body first, preparing it to go into those practices? Because I find a lot if my body's just all out of whack, nervous system, everything, and I just haven't been taking care of it, and like ungrounded, like it's just, I mean, it's just an onslaught, and it's, I know there's no goal to like get it still, but that sort of eases, you know, at least it's not such an onslaught.
So let me put it this way. The Eightfold Path,
Mhm.
which is a lot of smart scholars and teachers will tell you that for 45 years, all the Buddha taught was the Four Noble Truths, 84,000 different ways. First noble truth, life is suffering. Second one is the cause, greed, anger, ignorance, right? Craving, desire, all that kind of stuff. So we practice generosity, patience, morality, wisdom, these types of things. The third one is the ending of suffering, nirvana, liberation. The fourth one is the path. And this is directly related to your question. My suggestion is that your view should flip, because what I'm hearing you say is, what did the Buddha teach about the body being ready and prepared so it's not all out of whack to be able to meditate? Eightfold Path, the practical, logical, very simple to understand steps to ending suffering. Having the correct views, thoughts, speech, action, livelihood, effort. I've gotten to 6. Did I say meditation yet? Mindfulness and concentration. What the Buddha taught is to do this first 6 first. What you're asking is, how do I keep my body from getting all out of whack? And what the Buddha said is, practice generosity, morality, patience, diligence. Practice having correct views and thoughts and speech and action and livelihood and effort. And then sit. Most people come into Buddhist practice because they want to meditate. Oh, meditation is going to fix me. No, if you stop lying, cheating, and stealing, that's going to fix you. Pretty sure it's the same thing every other religious teacher taught. The mistake we make often is thinking that it's about meditation. Meditation is a piece of it, and a very important piece of it. But Karmalekshi Soma was a great Tibetan Buddhist nun. She taught here for years. She retired finally in January, was a professor at USD, moved back to Hawaii. One of the best things I've ever heard, she said, she was giving a talk we were doing up at Baysok Day for the college students probably 10-something years ago. And she was talking about the mindfulness movement in Western culture and how it kind of drives her crazy because Western folks are all into mindfulness, you know. And she said, you could mindfully rob a bank. You could mindfully murder somebody. Mindfulness without moral and ethical behavior only gets you so far. Meaning, you can't just meditate. If your body is a mess, it's a reflection of your mind and how you're taking care of yourself. Yes, exercise, we'll eat, obvious.
Well, that's what I meant. I was more talking about, and I appreciate your answer. I was talking more about, like, is there a specified system? You know, like
I just gave you the specified system. You just don't like the answer. It just doesn't resonate with you. Work on the Eightfold Path. Views, thoughts, speech, action, livelihood, and effort. That is the specified system that he taught. That's the first thing he taught. And he taught that for 45 years. That's the practice. We can't just meditate and fix things. I used to always say at the old Buddha for You, we had the sign that said free meditation. Everybody came in, right? If that sign said free morality practice, how many people are showing up? This is intro to Buddhism and meditation, and everybody's like, yep, I'm in. Give me the beginner stuff, intro to Buddhism and meditation. This is intro to morality and ethics on a Saturday morning at 11 o'clock, or whatever time you want to show up, right? That one you'd be late to. How many want to show up to that? That's what the Buddha taught. Focus on your morality, your ethics, your way of living. How do you spend your day? Make that 90% of your practice. And then if you meditate every once in a while, because ultimately the way most Western people, especially in this country, meditate isn't even remotely close to what the Buddha was teaching at all. We meditate to get away from everything. Meditation, sitting, standing, walking, lying down. It is everything you're doing. It's not taking a break and saying, okay, I'm going to go meditate now. It's integrated into every area of your life. It is an intense level of concentration and focus in what you're doing with morality and ethics. That's the practice. That is specifically what he taught. There's a question here. One, Greg, glad you found it. Cynthia asked, I do sit every morning at therapist's direction, in parentheses is at therapist's direction. And many days I wonder why I sat for half an hour because I was not, in caps, present. So much to think about, but back again that next morning. Yeah, and that's just what I was talking about. If you sit for 30 minutes and you're not present and your mind is all over the place, I'm not suggesting you abandon that. Because when your mind is a mess and you sit and don't do anything, the outcome's usually better than if you were actually doing things when your mind is a mess. But what I would suggest is, and same with this concept of time. We're too, I think, structured and driven to have these times, and they all end in a zero, right? Does anyone sit down and say, I'm going to sit for 17 minutes? No, even that, it's like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 10 minutes. Why is it increments of 5 or 10, right? When you sit tomorrow, set your timer for 27 minutes. I just solved your problem. You just said that 30 minutes was great, and at 27 minutes, the last 3 minutes are torture for you, right? Problem solved. Sit for 27 minutes and see if the torture begins at 24. Cynthia, shorten the amount of time you're sitting and work on actually training the mind to be present. Breath in, breath out. Thoughts arise, back to breath. Breath in, breath out. Thoughts arise, back to breath. Breath in, breath out. Thoughts arise, back to breath. Do that for 3 minutes. That's training. If you want to run a marathon, you don't just go out tomorrow and run a marathon. You have to train slowly and build towards it. And I don't mean building towards the amount of time that you sit. I mean building the amount of time that you're able to focus on present moment and be with life as it is and drop all the stories. So try that. Or maybe, every other day, just say, okay, I'm going to sit for 3 minutes today and just try to train my mind for 3 minutes. And then the next day you want to sit for 30 minutes and just daydream for 30 minutes, then great. Do that as well. But, try changing that. What else? Yeah.
Sometimes I notice that I'm entering dream world, when I'm meditating, and then I'll come back in. But sometimes I'll stay and just fall asleep. My question is, do you want to avoid falling asleep or let it happen?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you recognize that, because I've heard that question 1,000 times, and often people say, I enter some dream-like state, and usually I follow up with saying it's because you were asleep. But you already shared that that's what's going on. So you recognize that you're sleeping, and your question is, should I stay asleep or, kind of wake back up?
Yeah.
One of my favorite Zen expressions is, when hungry, eat, when tired, sleep. So if meditation is putting you to sleep, sleep is not the end of the world, right? Falling asleep for meditation is not the end of the world, right? Monastery, we used to call it sleepitation, right? So you're exhausted, you fall asleep when you close your eyes for 5 minutes or whatever it is. But one, that should be a sign that says, and you're young, closing our eyes for 5 minutes shouldn't just automatically put us to sleep. So if it does, what does that typically mean?
It's more like 30 minutes.
Well, okay. But what I mean is, if our meditation is putting us to sleep, forget the amount of time for a minute. What does that mean?
Tired.
We're tired.
Yeah.
We're not sleeping well. We're not taking care of our body. We're not exercising, whatever it might be. If closing our eyes for 5 or 30 minutes puts us to sleep, then we're just tired. So one, I think that should be a trigger or a sign to tell us, I need to get better sleep. I need to take care of myself, right? And then obviously the practice of meditation isn't geared towards falling asleep. You know, it's in Buddhist terms, it's about waking up. So we want to wake up to present moment. Nothing wrong with sleeping and dreaming, but if you're kind of going to dedicate time to sit and do a meditation, then you want to try to stay awake ultimately. And one simple practice you can do is just, and this is really the Zen practice anyways, but just keep your eyes open. All right, so you can try this right now. Anybody can try it if you want. Just kind of close your eyes, sit up straight for a minute. Just close your eyes. And then slowly start to open them where you're gazing off the edge of your nose down about a foot or two in front of you. So you're not at your nose, you'll get dizzy, but just kind of a foot in front of you or two. So it looks like if I'm looking at you right now, it looks like your eyes are closed, but your eyes are actually open, right? Hold your attention there. How do we live our lives? Eyes open or eyes closed? Eyes open. So if you do find that maybe midway through, 15 minutes in, you're starting to get sleepy or fall asleep, then open them up a little bit to keep them open. Does that help? Yeah. What else? Other thoughts, questions before we wrap up? We'll do one more. Anybody has anything?
I know I could just Google this, but I want to hear you say it. But what's a Dharma song?
And I'm going to Google what's a Dharma song. What do you mean by Dharma song? Like a chant?
I guess I was watching a YouTube on Technicon the other night. He said you could. Question was, how do I? What was it? Something about meditate better. Well, you could do a Dharma song with your head.
Okay. So
I thought it meant like a chant or meditation.
So Thich Nhat Hanh, knowing that it came from him, my guess is this is what he was referencing. Very common in the Plum Village, which is their home in France, and Deer Park here in San Diego. They sing a lot.
Great.
Yeah. So if you like singing, you know, when you go to like the day, have you been up to the day of mindfulness practices?
No.
If you like singing, then it's beautiful. If you don't like singing, then it's awkward and you're going to feel like you're at some weird camp. You know? And I mean that with all the respect. I just use that phrase because somebody, like we just did a little, our social sangha, and I'll close with this thought, just went to Deer Park with a bunch of people from here. And, you know, so as I saw a few people after, you know, how was it? And it's such a beautiful space, and the teachings are brilliant. The people are beautiful. The monks and nuns they call brothers and sisters, and it's such a Western-friendly, wonderful space. And so usually people love it up there. But somebody said they felt like they were at like religious camp because of all the songs that they were singing. And they're very like camp song-esque, but with Dharma stuff floated in there, you know? And so my guess is when he said you could listen to a Dharma song, that's my guess what he was talking about.
I was talking to children.
Oh, then he definitely was talking about that, yeah. So those are Dharma songs. Chanting, which is different, chanting is really beautiful. And for me, especially early on, I loved the chanting because one, it was in Mandarin, in Chinese, and I didn't understand it. And it had this beautiful, like, to me, it almost sounded like songs, but it had this beautiful melody and this like deep resonance, and it just like went through me. Now, to the, you know, if you don't speak Mandarin, you don't know what they're saying. If you speak Mandarin, all they're doing is reciting the Buddhist sutras. But to someone who doesn't understand it, it sounds more song-like. It was really beautiful because as you begin to chant along, whether you memorize it from hearing it or whether you have like the phonetic translation with it, transliteration, you can chant along with it. you still don't understand it. But what it does is it becomes a point of focus and reference, the same way we would use a mantra. Because it takes our mind away from all the stuff and puts it on something. Single-minded focus, we call it. So a flower, an incense stick, a shoe, a bottle of water, chanting, something to focus on. And chanting Buddhist sutras is a beautiful practice, as is singing Dharma songs. And Deer Park and Plum Village, they're beautiful at singing Dharma songs. So yeah. Yep. All right, so I'm going to close on that. We'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to those who need it most. All right, a few quick announcements and just a quick follow-up before I get hate mail from the Deer Park and Plum Village devotees that may be here. Thich Nhat Hanh is one of the, he passed away recently, but I think one of the greatest of our time living Zen masters, someone I've learned more than I could even imagine from his teachings. But I am also very real with the fact that all the different Buddhist traditions, even today, when you go to the monasteries and temples and you see them, they're all different. And some of them you're going to show up to and they're going to speak to you and you're going to love it. And some of them you're going to show up to and it's just not going to be your thing. So I was really referencing someone who it wasn't their thing. But they're all different. Thanks for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened up this temple 17 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students, we're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. Every night, different practices going on, different Buddhist traditions, different unenlightened folks just like myself leading. We have quite a large recovery sangha, so anyone battling addiction, drugs, alcohol, or whatever it might be that meets just about every day, whether it's here or virtually. Schedule-wise, a lot of really fun, cool changes after so many years of just kind of being stuck in the same thing. I'm glad we're adding some new things and changing things up a little bit. But Wednesday nights, Bettina's been leading the last 3-4 weeks. She's incredible. She's doing a 4 Foundations of Mindfulness class, 4 Brahma Viharas. Thursdays, we've changed a bit with different leaders. Olivia, former DBT, Delta Beta Tau College Group. She's leading now, and we'll roll in some other people leading that as well. So that's Thursday nights. Starting tomorrow, we're offering a new Sunday afternoon from 3 to 5. It's a 90-minute sit called Zazen, which is just seated meditation from 3 roughly to 4:30, 4:28 actually. And then a 30-minute discussion on the Heart Sutra. So if you're looking for a longer period of time to sit, there will be little breaks. It's not 90 minutes straight, but you'll have a brief break. But it is a 90-minute sit and a 30-minute discussion. And the intention is not to just kind of drop in and out. This is a class that if you really want to sit longer, then it's there for you to sit. And if you really then want to dive into trying to understand the Heart Sutra, good luck with that. That's there as well. So that'll be every Sunday now, 3 to 5, starting tomorrow. Last new thing, again, a week from Monday, we're starting the Recovery Dharma, which has been on Friday nights. We're also adding now on Monday nights. So that'll be downstairs every Monday at 7. So all kinds of fun stuff. And the last thing, of course, if anybody is crazy enough and wants to reside in retreat format at the Dharma Bum Temple for a week, just go to the website, look up residential retreats, and that's now also available starting August 11th. All the information is on the website. So thanks all for being here. We do have some gardening stuff for those who want to stick around and help clean up. We appreciate it. Take care.